One of the most common things that I hear from expecting parents or parents that have just moved to town looking for a pediatrician is, we're healthy, hopefully we won't need the doctor very much. Or for those who already have kids, we're healthy, we don't go to the doctor that often. And I always smile because truly, I really hope you're right. Today, we're going to talk about why you might want the right pediatrician who practices in a way that aligns with your values, even if you don't go to the doctor that often or think you might not need one that much. Hi, I'm Dr. Ellie. I founded Middle Path Integrative Pediatrics in Asheville, North Carolina, and I'm excited to tell you all about it. So a lot of people come to me for their meet and greets, which if you don't know, you can go to my website and schedule a meet and greet to talk with me and have a conversation about whether Middle Path is a good fit for you. And it's just a conversation, not a high pressure sales call or anything like that. We just do it over Zoom and chat about what's going on with your situation. A lot of people are coming to these meet and greets for different reasons, but one of the reasons is they are pregnant and they're having like a very great pregnancy. Some aren't, but a lot of people are like really healthy during their pregnancy. They're, they have kids and they've had an uneventful first few years. Things are generally going well. And they're just kind of looking for a pediatrician that practices holistically and integratively. But they're kind of thinking like, well, I don't go to the doctor that much. And a lot of that is because naturally we're hoping as humans that that will continue to be true. And again, I hope everyone is right. But I want to tell you about a different family because I think this is important to hear. So one of my families almost did not join the practice because of that reason. They had a great pregnancy. The delivery was super normal, not any issues. APGARs were great. If you know what those scores are all about, it's just like scores of like how healthy the baby is when they're first born. Everything went smooth, went home. And luckily they had joined the practice. So they'd made the decision, we really want this type of care for our child. We want them to have a holistic pediatrician that looks at root causes and not just putting Band-Aids on problems. So they had gone ahead and signed up. So seeing the baby, about 6 weeks in, Mom just looked really tired, really overwhelmed, lots of tears, exhaustion, just didn't seem herself. Now, for those of you who've had babies before, typically in the first few weeks, there is a lot of that, right? Because we have a newborn, they're not sleeping, the hormones are settling down and getting used to having a new baby. But this was different. This felt different. This mama was not herself. And I knew that because I knew her. I had been seeing her very regularly. We developed a relationship. And she was able to let me know upon further discussion that she had actually started developing really bad postpartum depression and anxiety. She was really struggling to sleep at all. Not that you get much sleep when you have a newborn, but even those moments where her husband would take over, she just couldn't fall asleep. She was up researching, all kinds of things in the middle of the night, just crying all the time, really not herself. And actually what had happened was the breastfeeding had become really difficult. So she had been breastfeeding her baby. And because of the postpartum, it just became more challenging. So many of you may know, like if you're having a mental health concern when you're trying to breastfeed, it can be very hard because breastfeeding, while natural, isn't always simple and it takes a lot of work for many people. So the breastfeeding became difficult. And therefore, the milk supply had started to decrease. To top this off, her little baby had started developing blood and mucus in their poop. Now, very commonly, there's different things that can be, but very commonly, babies that have that have something called milk protein allergy. And that's where they are sensitive to the protein in milk. And they start getting colitis, which is inflammation of the colon. And that makes them kind of poop blood and mucus. It's obviously not healthy. And so we needed to address that. That's even harder when you're breastfeeding because now moms have to avoid dairy. So they can't be, having cheese and milk and all of that. And you would think that would be maybe not as hard in some ways, but when you're reading labels and you're exhausted and you're like, does this protein bar that I grabbed randomly have dairy? It gets really exhausting. And every feeding was just becoming more and more stressful. This mom was so guilty, like just feeling so guilty and feeling so overwhelmed because she wanted to breastfeed. And she just couldn't, like put in the effort and the time and energy in that moment. So, what we decided to do was just slow everything down and take it in steps. So, we booked many little follow up appointments because in a membership, you can do that. Okay. You're not being billed every time. And we discussed all the different things we could do. So, breastfeeding support, such as like lactation. We talked about her husband helping, in case you wanted to do just like one bottle a night of breast milk. We talked about getting donor milk, when her supply was dropping. We talked about galactagogues, which are ways to help stimulate the breast milk, nutrition, how to get, her nutrition back on track, getting her drinking a lot of water so that she could start producing all of the milk. We talked about pumping, although as you know, or may not know, pumping can be very stressful too. So that was like another option. We also did finally talk a little bit about formula. Now, I'm not here to say formula is the best choice. If you can breastfeed and do breast milk, that is the most amazing thing in the world. If you cannot, though, for mental or physical health, there are some options. And people need to know what those are if that's the case. So we went through all the different brands, which ones were the healthiest ones, which ones had ingredients that we are trying to avoid. We talked with her husband about like how he could support if we were moving in that direction. And, finally we were able to figure out a way to extend her breast milk supply as long as we could. She had also had some frozen breast milk. So that really helped out, kind of get everything, what's the word I'm looking for? Extend the amount of time the baby could have breast milk before having to do any formula. But eventually we did do a little bit of formula and we did a very healthy option. And we talked about how to support the gut microbiome along the way with doing that. And the good news is we were able to also support mom. And so that's something that a lot of people don't really understand about our practices. We're not just here for your baby, we're here for you. And so working alongside her psychiatrist, we were also able to offer her supplements to support her mental health. Again, work on her nutrition. Again, work on her joy, on her support system. Like, who is going to come and help? Did she have a therapist? Like, all of these things. And so, most importantly, this mama was not left to make these decisions alone or think through these problems by herself when she's struggling with sleep deprivation, postpartum depression and anxiety, breastfeeding concerns, milk protein allergy of her newborn. Not to mention, she was already back to work and had a very stressful job, like very stressful job. And no wonder she was feeling this way, but she didn't have to go through all of that alone because we were able to help her because she could come in as often as she needed to help make the decisions that felt right for her. And that's one of the reasons I built Middle Path This Way, is because I want parents to have the time and support for conversations like these and not just be like, well, I guess you have to do formula. And that's kind of the end of it. We're really here to support the whole family, not just the baby, because you cannot, I have said this a million times and I will, oh my goodness, what's that expression where people say like, die for the reason or something? I don't know. I can't remember, but you cannot treat babies and children separately from the family structure and family dynamic because it does not work. And people who are approaching pediatric care that way, I can't even imagine. Like, I just don't see a way to do it effectively and well because we're all part of our family construct and dynamic and what's going on with us, It's the same with teens. It's like you can't treat them and not think about like what's going on at their school. So to shift gears a little bit, I want to talk about the 3 things like literally every new parent needs. And I think this is important because when people book meet and greet, sometimes it's kind of like, well, I'm not sure what I need or want, right? So we're just going to lay it out there. You need someone who knows you. This seems kind of obvious, but for those of us who've been in a medical system and haven't felt seen or known, this is a bad place to be. If you're in a practice where people are like rushing you in and out the door and they don't know that you're working 80 hours a week and you have postpartum depression and your baby has milk protein allergy and there's no way you're going to be able to pump and you need time or you are going to lose your mind, you're not going to get the healthcare that you need. You're going to get someone that's going to say, well, just do bottles and I'll see you in a month. And, who's that good for? Like literally no one. Same with your baby. You need someone who knows your baby, who knows your child, who knows your teen. All right. And I mean, you would think that this would be completely obvious, but if you've ever been to one of those practices where no one's ever really available and you're seeing like a different person literally every single time and no one's followed up with you and no one knows what your baby actually looks like, it's a huge red flag. Okay. And the reason is when pediatrics, it's so important to observe the children. Okay. So observation is a key skill in pediatrics. And why? Because a lot of babies and kids can't talk yet. So if I have seen your baby once, I may not know the color of their rosy cheeks. Normally they're rosy and now they're not. Normally they're very active and now they're very quiet. These are things that can get very missed. And I'll give you an example of this. This was actually an interesting thing that happened to me. So I was working at one of these practices a long time ago and in Utah, they were great pediatricians. They were just in a bad system. But there was a child that was put on my calendar. I'd never seen this child before. And the dad said to me, she's very tired. Like she's just not like walking the way I would expect. Like she's just stopping. And, I'm kind of frustrated. Like, I don't know what's going on, but maybe she's sick. Here she is. And I was like, okay, well, let's, draw the blood, which is what I did. Long story short, very sadly, this child ended up having very bad anemia because they had, trigger alert right here. If you don't want to hear any like negative health outcome of a child, they did get better, but this little part might be a little edgy. This child was diagnosed with cancer and they were able to seek treatment. And when this child came back to me for follow-up, she had the most beautiful bronze skin. And I had no idea that on that day that she had come to me, she was white as a sheet because I had never seen her before. And dad had a very pale skin tone. So had I been seeing that child that whole time, we could have caught that way before something like that happened. We could have treated that way before. We could have gotten on top of the anemia way before, all kinds of things. And so that's why you don't want to be in a practice that there are people that don't know your baby, your child, or your teen. And I'm smiling a little bit because I'm thinking about teens. Teens especially really know what to say. And you really have to know their personalities to know a little bit more about their health and their social life and things like that. The third thing you need is someone who will help you make decisions. Now, I'm emphasizing help you because what you don't want, most likely, or in most cases, is someone who is making the decisions for you, shaming, judging, doing things that aren't aligned with your values. What you want, most likely, is someone who's like, these are the options. This is like one direction we could go. This is another direction. Here's the ups. Here's the downs. Let's talk through it. And this doesn't have to be the only time we talk about it. Okay. So that is another key part too, because sometimes you get like a little bit of that when you're in those rushed visits, but that's the time for you to decide, right? And there's no other conversation. In our practice, we're not doing that. You have all the time in the world. You can come as often as you want. And you can call us. And you can do a virtual appointment and all the things. Okay. So those are the three things. You need someone who knows you, knows your baby, and can help you make decisions. Okay. If I had to add anything, it would just be someone who cares, I will say, okay, I got one little tidbit here. Okay. There are some providers that went into medicine with just like really good intentions to help people and heal people. And then they got put into systems that did not work for them. And some of those people end up burned out. And, I feel very strongly that physicians need a lot more support, as do parents. But I will say, if you are the patient of someone who is very burned out because they're in a system like that, they are not going to they're not going to be able to give you the time and attention. Why? Because they're having their own mental health concerns, okay? And I have seen in certain circumstances, people just being crispy bacon is what I call it with their patients, and dismissive and, no longer able in that moment to care because they're just crumbling themselves. So you just want to make sure you're not in a system like that where people are having to see like 30 patients a day. Okay. I want to emphasize that pediatric medicine is relationship medicine. Okay. You cannot do pediatrics without a relationship. You cannot do pediatrics without a relationship with the child, with the mom, with the dad, with the grandma, with the stepmom, with stepdad, auntie, nanny. There's just no way to do it. Okay. And caring for parents is helping us care for babies. Okay. So I guess I just want to emphasize that again, children are in a family system, in a school system, in a community, in a world, in a social world, in a digital world. And trying to pull a kid out of that and create health is extremely difficult. Okay. So it's really important that we're not just having the goal be treating illness. Okay. That's not the goal. The goal is to build confidence for moms and dads and kids, especially as they get older, confidence that they're able to make the right decisions, that they're able to feel confident that they know what to do in a certain situation. Should they go to the emergency room? Is it okay to stay home? Can we call Dr. Ellie in the morning? There's like an education component. It's also about prevention. So we've got to help kids stay healthy as much as possible. Every kid, even with a great immune system, will get sick here and there. But in general, we want to optimize their genetic potential. And we want moms to go from just feeling like, I don't know who to call, to I know exactly who to call. I'm going to call this person because they are going to help me and we are going to work through it together. And that will end the 2 a.m. Google spiral and ChatGPT. I want to call it a monologue because you're not even talking to a person. And then rechecking on Claude and then calling your neighbor spiral. Okay. Because the goal here is helping you feel confident, clear, and able to keep your kids healthy moving forward with our support. So with that said, I think the main thread here is that these visits are rarely just about symptoms. They're literally about helping families make thoughtful decisions. And that's why Middle Path is built around relationships instead of rush to visits. So to circle back, I still hope you do not need your pediatrician very often. But when life surprises you, I hope you'll already know who to call. I would love to meet with you. Schedule that complimentary meet and greet. It's a virtual, there's no pressure. It's literally a conversation. You can go to my website, middlepathintegrativedpediatrics.com. The button's right there at the top, or we'll put the link in the show notes. What else is going on? If you know Willow, my dog, if you're signed up to my newsletters, if you're not, sign up because you'll get all the details. She hurt her knee. She blew out her cruciate ligament. And she's seeing Dr. Crouch. Hi, Dr. Crouch. If you know Dr. Crouch in Nashville, he's like the legit orthopedic surgeon for dogs that everyone goes to. He's done like 6,000 of these surgeries. She's going in soon, but girl is bouncing off the wall. She's a border collie, Aussie Shepherd mix. And despite our best efforts, she's still trying to jump and run. I'm like, you don't have a leg that works. Anyway, she doesn't speak English. So what can you do? So that's what's going on with her. Our garden is popping. We're still eating eggplants and tomatoes like crazy. If you have any other recipes, like literally let me know. I'm knee deep in sci-fi and fantasy books, let's be honest. Like, that's me all the way. Just a weird, nerdy girl over here. All right. Well, that wraps it up for my little things you didn't ask about me, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Thank you so much for spending these few minutes with me today. Parenting is full of questions, and it is my hope that each week you leave here just leaving a little bit more confident and a little bit less alone. So until next time, take good care of yourself, wishing you well, and take care of those little ones you love. Wishing you well. Bye.